Today we paint via our chop suey method. Chop suey is a mixed vegetable Filipino dish. The chop suey method is basically reverse slop chop. Today we paint this Lutas Orc by Games Workshop. Chop suey method is painting of the base colors and then slop chop and then the highlights. The highlighting is optional as it is time consuming. Depending on the miniature, I will continue to paint via our double slop chop plus method. But the double slop chop has its flaws. The main flaw is the painting of the skin in my opinion. Skin tends to be too rough to my liking. The rough finish is mainly due to the dry brushing. Of course, you can spend more time and dry brush lightly to produce a better finish. But light and more refined dry brushing is time consuming, especially for army painting. The chop suey method is a desperate attempt to produce better skin painting than slop chop or double slop chop. So today we explore this method for the very first time. In hindsight, I can improve this method further. But today I am pretty happy with the process and the result. So join me as we paint this Lutas Orc miniature by Games Workshop via our reverse slop chop or chop suey method. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my channel. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to The Army Painter for making this video possible. Oh, by the way, we are using a few colors from the Army Painter John Blanche Masterclass paint sets. As much as I do not want to use these paints since people do not have them yet, I just cannot resist. Do check out my previous 2 John Blanche videos to know more about these John Blanche paint sets. We start with black primer cause I ran out of gray and white spray can primer. And I am too lazy to use my airbrush as usual. The problem with black primed miniatures, since I am old, I cannot see the details. To help me see the details, we will do a quick dry brush using the darkness from the John Blanche paint set. I am using my goat hair dry brush from Foxbite Hobbies. The Army Painter Masterclass dry brush is a good option. This dry brushing is not part of our chop suey method. My old eyes just need help to see the tiny details better. I applied the dry brushing in a couple of thin passes. Now we start the chop suey method by painting the base colors. This makes this method similar to the traditional painting method and can also be a sort of reverse slop chop. The traditional and basic way of painting miniatures is painting the base colors, then adding shades with washes, and then highlighting. Slop chop is dry brush, then speed paints, and then highlighting. But here we do the reverse and paint the base, then slop chop, and then highlighting. So chop suey is basically painting the base, then slop chop, then highlighting. My initial intention was to paint only the base color of the green skin and the groundwork, areas that have big plain surfaces that generally do not render well with speed paints. Also, by painting the base color of the skin, I get a smoother finish even after the slop chop later. I think painting the base colors of almost everything, except the metallic parts, helped me define the details and create more separation between the different elements of this miniature. I might do this part of the painting in my next chop suey video, but this will do for now. To be honest, painting base colors and focusing on leaving thin black lines in between different colors is so boring. The base colors, may it be via the airbrush or the brush, can be the most boring or even the most time-consuming part of the traditional miniature painting method. But the great thing about painting the base colors is that we can use different values from the same triad and they look like unique colors even if near each other. Unlike when you do layering wherein you should use colors from different triads as you will use the other colors in the same triad on the same section. Although I found painting the base colors a tad boring, it was refreshing painting and seeing the Warpaints fanatics over black primer. The only advantage of painting over black primer in my opinion is when you leave thin black lines in between different parts of the miniature. Leaving a thin black line is so much easier than panel lining later, and this will create a very good definition and separation to your painting. In our next chop suey painting video, I might do the gray to white dry brush under painting first, then paint the base colors of the skin or armor or any big areas like a cloak, then speed paints and finish off with highlighting. I think this next version of our chop suey method will be more efficient. Do tell me what you think in the comment section below. Also, I almost always say this in my videos. Notice how much paint is loaded on my Foxbite Kolinsky brush. You should only load paints 1/3 of the brush or at most 1/2. And never let paints run all the way to the ferrule. You should create this good habit of loading your brush properly. This will extend the life of your precious Kolinsky brush. Now you see in the video that I am using Ironclad Gray. This is also from the John Blanche collection and is a very nice dark gray color. I want this color as an underpainting for the silver metallic paints to make them pop better. You may also use deep gray, but you will need to darken it with dark tone wash later. After painting all the base colors, I realized that I want the goblin to have a different green skin than the orc. So now we paint the goblin with Emerald Forest, a warmer green color. To maximize my mistake, notice how I painted less of the Emerald Forest over the previous green color. This gave more volume to the goblin skin. Also, the previous green skin base color helped me paint the Emerald Forest more easily. Since Emerald Forest has weaker coverage, painting it over black primer might be a good 3 thin coats. Now, if you're getting value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now we do SLAPCHOP. We painted the base colors with Warpaint's Fanatics, which are the same paints for highlighting. This is why this chop suey method is kinda like reverse SLAPCHOP. I am using matte white from the Warpaint's Fanatic range and my goat hair Foxbite dry brush. Unload the paint on the dry brush a little more than usual and apply in multiple passes. Always make sure to let the previous pass dry or else you might rub off the previous layer of paint. You may use a hairdryer to speed up the drying time in between passes. Now we paint with speed paints. One of the advantages of this chop suey method is that we have more separation between different colors. Since we have a solid base color as underpainting, having a clearer definition between different colors will make panel lining or recess painting more optional. Also, a more defined definition and separation make our painting look cleaner. I think we could paint our base colors a little bit lighter next time. Lighter mid-tone base colors should give more allowance to the filtering of the speed paints. This will help brighten our highlights. And for people who do not plan to paint highlights, a brighter mid-tone base color should give you guys a brighter finish. As you can see in the video, another advantage is to simply use speed paint as some sort of a general wash. I am using bony matter on the different brown colors at the back and it looks fine. The painting of the mid-tone base colors took me roughly an hour or so, but the painting of these speed paints was super quick, maybe just 30 minutes or less, including the drying time. Also notice that I am using bright speed paints, or in the case of Bony Matter and Gravelord Grey, speed paints with weak mid-tones. But like I said earlier, if we painted with brighter mid-tone base colors, we can use darker speed paints to give allowance to the filtering of the speed paints. I did not thin down all the speed paints here with Speed Paint Medium. We can explore using medium, especially if we use very saturated or darker speed paints. I am happy with our painting at this point, and now we paint the green skins. I want a warmer skin for the goblin. So I used Gilly Dew, while I used the cooler Ghoul Green speed paint for the orc. The cool and warm green skins gave a nice separation and contrast between the two characters. Now I think I need to make a video of painting different green skin or human skin tones via this chop suey method to show that it is easy to create various tones by layering different bases and speed paints. You could apply another pass of speed paints on the lower areas of the miniature to create more volume. Just make sure to blend the edges towards the first pass so not to create ugly coffee stains. You can see that this chop suey method produces a better skin finish than our double slop chop. Since we only did dry brush on the highlight areas, our mid-tones and shade areas are smoother. Now it's just a matter of painting the metallics for a nice tabletop finish. I am using weapon bronze over the dark brown underpainting. This is an efficient way of painting true metallic metal. Have a matte dark underpainting as your base color, then paint the metallics as edge highlighting and stipple them on some areas. This technique creates more volume and interest to your TMM painting. Now we paint heavy metal over the dark gray underpainting. This color is darker than gunmetal and is also from the John Blanche collection. You may use brighter metallic paints as edge highlights to create more volume, or you may apply washes in the middle of the metallic parts to make it darker than the edges. Now, we can call this done, most especially if we are painting an army or unit of Lutus orcs. But as usual, I will spend a bit more time on the painting of the highlights. Highlighting is my favorite part of painting any miniature. Much more a Warhammer miniature that usually has so many details. I highlight with an opaque sketch, then smoothen it with glazes. My Warpaint's Fanatic glazes are always thinned down with Warpaint's Stabilizer. A good starting point for thinning down Warpaint's Fanatic for glazing is 3 parts, Warpaint's Stabilizer and 1 part Warpaint's Fanatic. You can also see in the video that I apply glaze highlights via stippling. Stippling reduces the need to blend too much. Glaze highlighting via stippling can take you around 30 minutes to an hour. However, you can also stipple some shade colors, which will double the amount of time you spend in painting a miniature. With this miniature, I only focused on highlighting the skin, the ultramarine helmet, and the skulls. Once you are happy with your highlighting, you may proceed to the last step. Our last step is the painting of Warpaint's Fanatic Effects paints. This step is less optional than highlighting in my opinion, especially for army painting. I mean, you can skip highlighting or just quickly highlight the skin, then proceed to paint these effects paints. Effects paints are combined or use similar effects paints for best results. When using Warpaint's Fanatic Effects paints, less is more in most cases. Well, except maybe the true blood effects and oozing slime, I can dip a painted miniature in a cup of those paints, and I am pretty sure I will be happy with the result. Rust is trickier to use. Too much rust, especially fresh rust, will overwhelm your painting. The Grim Rust from the John Blanche paint set is more forgiving than fresh rust though, since Grim Rust is not too saturated. But again, combining dark rust, grim rust, fresh rust, and even the rust tone wash will give you the best results. You may use Warpaint's Fanatic Effects paints straight from the bottle. However, you may want to add a little bit of flow to the paints to let them flow on the edges and crevices. You may want these flowy effects paints when it comes to rust and verdigris. 2 parts paint and 1 part water is a good starting point, but a simple 1-to-1 will also work. Notice in the video how I combine different rust effects paints to create the best results. Now we apply my fave Warpaint's Fanatic Effects paint. I like this paint so much, but I try to refrain from using it every time. The thick consistency will let you draw this paint like a streak. The slow drying time will let you blend the edges. And you can apply this paint very thick to simulate pooling of blood. Now you see me apply a final glaze highlight via stippling. I am using Brigade Gray thinned down with Warpaint's Stabilizer. Now before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course the Army Painter for making this video possible. Like I said in the intro, our chop suey method is like reverse slop chop and also like the traditional base, wash, and highlight method. Chop suey is a mixed vegetable dish, and our painting method is a mix of various painting techniques. Also, this method and its future alterations are focused on quick skin, cloak, and plain armor parts painting. This chop suey method is an attempt to have better skin painting. Also, I'm tired of explaining that we highlight in our double slop chop plus method because of the plus in the name. SLAPCHOP painters say that the main premise of SLAPCHOP is to paint fast without the need to highlight. So at least we hope to not get similar comments with our chop suey method. If you are a new painter or a less experienced painter, the main lesson in this video is trusting the process. As cliche as it may sound, painting with acrylics is the easiest. Acrylics are the easiest medium even on canvas painting in my opinion, since you can simply paint over your mistakes due to the opacity of acrylics in most cases. Most especially if you paint with Warpaint's Fanatics, which has insane coverage. I enjoyed the painting of this miniature. And I am happy that the glazing part was reduced to just glaze highlighting since we have fairly smooth mid-tones and shade areas. With your feedback, I think we can make this chop suey method even more efficient. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye. Oh, if you like this video, do check out these other videos.